Hello and welcome back to A Celtic World, the YouTube channel connecting Celtic fans all over the world, from Bannockburn to Ballymun, from Cairnryan to Cape Town. Wherever you happen to find yourself in this wide world of sports, you're part of A Celtic World. And if you're new to the channel or you haven't already, please consider subscribing. We are new this season and closing in on a very humble 900 subscribers. So your click matters. You could be one of the people. We're 9 short last time I looked. So if you're one of the 9 that clicks during watching this video, you could be one of those people who tips us over that big mark. So I'll give you all a second to hit subscribe right now. Okay, all right, done it? Okay, good. All right, so we don't have a great amount of time to talk about the St Mirren game for this reason. This is the menu for today, gentlemen. Stephen in Australia, Ian in Wales. Greetings to you both.
How are you, Gav?
Very well. What mood are you in, Stephen?
I'm always in a mood. I'm in a happy mood, Gav.
Muted your mic there. I was trying to turn you up a wee bit. And Ian in Wales.
Yeah, good. Always good after a victory, especially getting through in the cup. You know, the roller coaster of emotion. I think I'm back on a high until the next one.
And a roller coaster of emotions, because we watched it together, of course, doing the watch along last night, which was fun. So we're going to talk about the St Mirren game, and then we have an interview that I did with Keith from Cmon The Hoops Celtic to play, and followed by Celtic socials. So that's the plan of action. Hello to everyone in the comments, like Michael Ross, my fellow Earthlings. Got to be happy with that. Okay, and got to be happy with the St Mirren game. So let's rattle through this relatively quickly. I reckon about 20 minutes should do it before we play the video. So, Stephen, take it away with the starting lineup and you registered shock with that. What did it mean to you?
Yeah, I think the thing that jumps out the most is the change of system with both Ida and Kyogo in the park at the same time. You know, signalling Kyogo dropping back into a more of a number 10 role. Something we've seen in fits and starts in previous games, but I don't think we've ever seen it from the start. So Brendan recognising we have a problem. Perhaps we don't have the players to fit the system he wants. He obviously prefers 4-3-3, but he's prepared to go 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1, as it was more like yesterday. So that was really it. As far as the starting lineup goes, Palmer coming in again for the very, very disappointed Kuhn, who didn't really do much against Hibs. So Palmer gets his place back. And the other thing that caught the eye was the lack of sighting of Abada, either in the team or on the bench. I don't think any of us were particularly surprised by that, given the way he exited the park after the Hibs game. So, as Brendan said after the game, that I don't think his head's in the right space to be playing at the moment. And whether or not that changes in the weeks to come, you know, who knows?
Well,
it could be
we
that
may
we've seen the
cover
last
that
of Abada.
later on. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But aside from that, you know, Tomoki on the bench, good to see him there. And I think Bernardo can count himself a little bit unlucky to be the midfielder that loses his place for Kyogo to come in. My feeling is Bernardo was our best midfielder against Hibs, and both O'Reilly and McGregor were pretty poor in that game. So I think Bernardo can count himself a little bit unlucky, but he lands on the bench. And both Yang and O back from the Asian Cup take their usual places on the bench.
And people were crying out for change, weren't we? The fans have been crying out for Rodgers to do something tactically, including Michael Ross. He's glad that Brendan listened to him. And it was indeed, as Elizabeth says, a good, solid performance. So let's get into the game. Ian, there's something that I didn't notice when we were watching it because we were too preoccupied with chatting and trying to work out how much delay there was between your screen and mine. And that was Adam Ida to pronounce it correctly, at kickoff. Did you see what happened to him just after kickoff?
Yeah, he just boshed someone, didn't he? Just smashed them out of the way.
Ran straight into this dude who was kind of getting in his road.
I was
Totally
surprised
upended
that
him.
wasn't an early free kick, taking the opportunity, but obviously decided to let it go because he's a big boy, and the guy from St Mirren, it was a coming together. He fell over. I don't think there was much in it.
Well, that sort of set the tone, didn't it, for the game? Combative, fast-paced, entertaining.
Yeah, I think we discussed it, but I think both teams started pretty well. As in, there was like kind of a back end-to-end sort of game. We were a lot more forward-looking. I mean, it was very apparent we were a lot more forward-looking. We still obviously have problems at the back. That's why St Mirren were able to kind of come forward and give us such a good game. But at least we were looking like we were kind of equally dangerous and capable. And very early on, Rodgers said in the pre-match, he said, it's, without the ball, we'll still go back to our normal defensive shape. And then with the ball, we'll kind of go into a 4-4-2. And you immediately saw a different Kyogo. Like, you really saw him starting to get involved in the beginning. So everything kind of seemed pretty positive on the face of it in the first 5-10.
And not long after 10 minutes, as Frank says, of course, our wee Japanese boy Kyogo back on the score sheet with an excellently taken goal early on in the first half to settle the nerves. And yes, only his 12th of the season so far. So the Kyogo goal, an amazing pass by McGregor to release Palma. And then, Stephen, you take it from there.
Yeah, as you say, a great pass from McGregor, who was quite impressive, I thought, during the game. I thought, the last couple of games, as I mentioned earlier, I thought he'd been really off form. And I think when Callum McGregor doesn't play well, Celtic don't play well. But he was much better yesterday, and it was a great pass to release Palma down the left. And he's looked up and, got an early ball into the box, which is something we've been crying out for a while. To get more early balls into the box instead of just recycling it back to the midfield or the defenders. So he got the early ball in, and Kyogo had timed his run absolutely perfectly into the box and just ran onto it and stuck it away via a little bit of a deflection. I think the commentary team made a lot more of the deflection than it actually was. It was just a really, really good strike from Kyogo. So great goal and fair play to Palma for getting the assist.
Yeah, the shot itself wasn't the most beautifully placed or anything, was it? But it did go through the defender's legs, took a nick. But the keeper was unsighted and didn't throw himself. It was the pace on the ball, really, that made the goal, you'd have to say. Lovely the way both passes, though, were played into space. The first pass was played in space for Palma to run onto. And then Palma's pass was so lovely because he just played it into where Kyogo was arriving shortly, and he just didn't have to break a stride. It was so nice.
But I think
that's what Palma should be doing more of, because we all know he's not blessed with pace, so he's not going to burn his man on the outside very often. So get early balls into the box. He done it once against Hibs when he was playing on the right hand side, and he whipped a great ball in early across the face of goal, and no one gambled. No one gambled on the run. But that's really what we need to see from Palma, because he's not going to get to the byline much. So you get a chance, whip it in early with pace into a good area, and I think we'll see the benefit.
And then there was a couple other chances, weren't there? Ida, with his back to goal, received the ball in the box, laid it off to Kyogo, breaks to Maeda, who kind of flicks it, and the keeper made a good save. Palma's dive. I know what Ian thinks about this because we both discussed it when it happened. On a scale of 1 to 10, Stephen, how embarrassed were you by Palma's dive?
No, to be honest with you, I think it was a penalty.
Okay, so not embarrassed at all. Go on then.
No, I think it was a penalty. I think it was contact with the guy's legs. The defender got wrong side of him. And that's the key in situations like that. And when you get wrong side of a player, you don't need to actually make any tackle. If there's a tangle of legs and there's contact with the legs, and there was 100% contact between the defender's legs and Palmer.
Was there?
Now, I understand how it looked a bit mad the way it went down, but when you're running, if somebody clipped your heels, that can happen. So I don't agree. I wasn't embarrassed, and I think it was pretty harsh on Palmer.
Oh. Well, tell us in the comments if you agree that there was contact, because I didn't see any, and I haven't seen any replays today.
No, I think the replays we
it
saw,
looked to me
Gav,
like
it looked like he'd just completely just fallen over.
No, it looked to me like the guy did get behind him, and Palmer thought this is like one of those instances where there's a coming together of legs, and he might just clip me and I'll go over, so I'll go over. But you might be right, Stephen, to be fair. I haven't looked at it that closely. What about the man Gogic? He had a couple of moments in. We enjoyed watching him, didn't we?
Yeah, so I think they were both from corners, as is the way we concede a lot of corners. I don't think that's going to change for a while. But the first one came in, and I can't exactly remember, the kind of build up, but he ends up smashing it off the bar. I don't think Joe Hart's saving that one. And then the other one is, I think Gogic is a pretty limited player, but he managed to execute a really good overhead kick that was more than matched by Joe Hart, like anticipating getting down and, save it. That would have been a spectacular goal gone in. So it's a spectacular save that he's managed to stop, and he was right back up to deal with the kind of follow up and stuff. So yeah, I think Joe Hart, as an aside, I think Joe Hart had like another good game for us. He's obviously, I think there's a lot of changes versus previous games. We're being quicker. Palmer was being more careful with the ball. Joe Hart wasn't being asked to pass out as much. The centre backs weren't passing it between each other. So there was a lot of positive things there, and I think it benefited a lot of people, the kind of quickness and not messing about with it at the back. Although last 10-15 that did creep in, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, well, then moving into the second half, Ida had the first real chance, I think, through on goal, a low cross from Ralston. And first time kind of sliding in on the left foot, and he pulled it wide of the post. And then there was the Maida goal. Stephen, do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, again, a good assist from Palmer on the left. Swings a great ball into the back post when Matt O'Reilly's arriving late from midfield. Great run, completely unmarked. Gets a really good contact on the ball. Unfortunately for him, it crashes back off the crossbar. But 100% for Maida for being there and reacting quick enough to get it into the net, because zero reaction time at the speed the ball came at him. So great from him, and another assist from Palmer. So hopefully that will do his confidence a bit of good, because he's clearly been struggling.
In Palmer's cross, slightly overhit, or he lobbed it over a congested penalty area because he saw O'Reilly coming into space?
I know people would say give them the benefit of the doubt, so let's give them the benefit of the doubt. It looks slightly overhit to me, but then if it ends up with O'Reilly, it wasn't wildly overhit, and that's what I was saying about Palmer. He was being a lot more careful with the ball in general throughout the whole game. So you have to say that you allow him for a margin of error getting in there. And yeah, good take by O'Reilly, and unfortunate. But then I think we said in the watch, I think Maeda was as surprised as us all that he actually managed to keep that down and put it in instead of skying it over the bar. He looked like a man in complete shock.
Well, you could see the surprise written all over his face. No, I think it was a perfectly weighted pass to O'Reilly. I think Palmer did that very purposefully myself. So that was the Maida goal. And then next incident of note I have down here is Bernabé's two-footed challenge. Now, it seems to be one of those that whatever your opinion is, somebody will tell you have to stop watching football because you know absolutely nothing. So let's hear our opinions on it. I've got a little clip here. Is that playing? I think that plays. Definite red, Huns raging. Jumping in with 2 feet is dangerous and reckless. But then again, it's a Celtic FC player. guilty of the offence. So we'll just make it a yellow this time, said that account. So you can see it there.
Yeah, I think watching it back, because I remember at the time, I still think he's lucky not to get a red, because I think, you're giving people the opportunity, and we've seen some really soft technical reds throughout this season given by VAR. But I think once he gets the yellow, it then has to become a clear and obvious error by the referee. So I think once the referee's given the yellow, I think it's then very difficult to upgrade that to red, because yes, he's 2 feet off, but that guy there, I mean, Nebo, I think he's one of the, I think he's one of the more mental ones of their support that's on there.
Well, okay, but we're just looking at the footage rather than
but I think no, it's the reckless. I would not say that's reckless. I'd say it's stupid, but it is. But there is an element of control, but you can't do it. So it's one of those ones that you can't do it, and he's running the risk, but he's not reckless because he's not actually 2-footing into the player. He's trying to come down into the ball. It just doesn't look the best, and it is a bit stupid because it's given him the opportunity.
Well, I agree entirely with that, but Stephen, I'm suspecting, has a very different view. Stephen.
No, I think he was fortunate to stay in the park, to be honest with you. I think, just the look of it and the optics of the challenge just looked terrible. And when I first seen it, I thought to myself that he's going to show a red for that. I mean, when you slow it down, have a look at it, there wasn't an awful lot in it in terms of contact. But I don't really as Ian says here, it's really stupid because I don't know what you're achieving by going in 2-footed in that situation. You just got to go in wholeheartedly with 1 foot and just put a solid challenge in and make good contact with the ball, because he was never second favourite to get to the ball. I think maybe what saved him was that he wasn't over the top of the ball, he wasn't high. And he was, as I said, there was very minimal contact with the player, so I think that probably saved him. But it's a bad challenge for me, and one we've seen given red cards for many times this season. So a lucky boy.
Gav, that's something that Pork Chop has said about that Bernaby. We said that at the time. In that incident, Bernaby was actually fouled in the lead up to it, and it wasn't given. It was like, I think the guy not only had the arm around the waist, but I think he had it in his face as well, and that wasn't given, which was an odd one. So maybe there's a bit of that in the referee's mind, that had he actually blown up for the foul that was beforehand, Bernaby doesn't make the challenge. But it's all, it's all ifs and buts.
Gav, you're muted. Thanks. All ifs and buts, but we got through the game. And anyone want to say anything about the substitutions before we consider the impact of it?
I think the thing with the substitutions is, and on the whole, the bench looked a lot stronger with guys coming back, and actually gave us the ability to bring on subs that weren't just fresh legs. It was players that are doing a bit. I mean, Yang's come back. He's had quite a lot of praise from the World Cup. He looked decent enough when he came on. Kuhn looked very lively, especially versus his Hibs performance. I think once we start to get some of the defence back, then we might start to see, a bit of a different bench again. But Iwata being back on there, and guys like Vata and stuff, I just think it looked stronger. And I think the subs were, some people were critical, saying it's just Rodgers subbing for the sake of subbing. But some players were looking tired, and it was good to, Kuhn and Yang both looked lively, and under a different circumstance, we might have had a bit more to do. But I think because it was a cup game, it was just defend for the last 15, 20.
Well, it was a cup game, and we marched boldly on into the next round. Talk us through the draw there, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, all you can really ask for at this stage of the competition is a home draw. If you get drawn at home to Livingston, who are in a pretty terrible state this season, is a major plus for us. So we've got to be short price favourites to win that game, and that takes you into a semi-final at Hampden. So then it's, you're very, very close to getting to the cup final then, and a bit of potential silverware. Rangers have been handed a tricky tie at Hibs, even though Hibs generally haven't played well against Rangers there. But that's a potential banana skin for them. And there's still a few first division teams hanging around in there. I think Hearts beat Airdrie, so it'll be Morton against Hearts. So Morton are still a lower division team, still in the draw, and the rest of it's just all Premier League teams. But certainly, you would fancy us to beat Livingston, although it'll be a dreadful game. It'll be just the lowest of low blocks from them, and trying to take it the extra time with penalties.
So into the semi-finals, hopefully, of the Scottish Cup. Team played pretty well. You've been very down on Brendan's chances going forward, Stephen. Are you tempering those slightly as a result of that game?
Well, I mean, I think with the win, at Hibs during the week was massive for him. And I think I said this time last week, if he lost at Hull, dropped the points at Hibs, and then went out of the cup this weekend, I think that would have been it for him. So I think that's how close it was. But I think he certainly bought himself a bit more time by getting the 2 wins. And I don't think there's nothing going to happen imminently now. And all we can hope for is, there's a lot of talk about getting rid of Brendanrodgers and, sack him now and all this sort of thing. But it's all, for me anyway, it's all a load of nonsense. And what we really need to do, as Ian said earlier, is hope that we get the injured players back. The bench starts to look a bit stronger. We've got more options there, particularly in midfield. And we can start to get a run of wins together and get a bit of confidence. But we've only, at the end of the day, we only dropped a couple of points in that run, and we just came off a run of 6 wins in a row before that. So we're not doing that badly, and I think any talk of sacking Brendanrodgers at the moment it's just a bit of a ridiculous notion.
Okay, good stuff. Well, that just about does it for the game. So we'll move on to the next section after this quick message.
What was the message there, Gav?
That wasn't the message that I intended to play, but the message remains the same. Subscribe. Okay. All right. Well, now it's time to move on to the interview that I did with Keith over the weekend. Keith from Cmon The Hoops. We'll be back after this video to react to it and to discuss our social media choices. So at the weekend, I caught up with one of the busiest Celtic YouTubers out there, Keith from Cmon The Hoops Celtic. Kaiser was meant to be on with us, but unfortunately a nasty bout of food poisoning has laid him low. So we wish him well. Now, for a bit of context, it's Chinese New Year time, which for some reason is relevant to my life. And I crammed this chat in before going out with my Asian in-laws for a big feed. So they were literally gathered downstairs wondering when I would join them and hoping to see me wearing something red, as is the tradition. So Gong Si Fa Chai, everyone out there who celebrates. And let's have a watch of this interview. Now, I've divided this up into 3 videos. Hopefully it plays smoothly. It might be, the audio certainly plays smoothly, but there's a chance that some of this isn't going to be terribly smooth, but here's hoping. Hoop Celtic, welcome to A Celtic World.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Pleasure.
Well, it's great to have you here on. And first question is, why Cmon The Hoops and not Mon The Hoops?
It's just for more of a Dublin slang, we went with Cmon The Hoops. So because my identity coming from Dublin, there's not many Celtic fans that when I started up the channel, started up the whole Cmon The Hoops back in 2011, I thought I'd change my own twist on it.
Yeah. So people back in Dublin wouldn't say Mon. That's a very Scottish thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so I went with Cmon The Hoops.
Yeah. Okay. And when did you start? Like 5 years ago or something?
I started literally around just after Paddy's Day. When I started the actual podcast back in 2018, but it originally started from Facebook. So we set up a page, Cmon The Hoops, started doing it on my own, got a couple of admins from Scotland, and then it just started getting bigger and bigger. Where I started seeing the volume of people coming through was actually lockdown. So what we done was, in lockdown, I reached out to many musicians that were sitting at home because obviously with the pandemic, the entertainment industry was on a stunt. So we got them on. These people from Canada, we had people from Australia, from all over the world that would come on and do an hour or two of gigging. So that rose the numbers. Then we start doing the podcast as well on top of it. But some really good engagement over the last, it'd been nearly 12 years. So what I decided to do was rebrand my logo. The star above isn't to do actually with the Celtic Lisbon star. The star to do above it is actually to do with the 10-year anniversary. So it's kind of like a milestone that we hit. So it's just me and a girl called Holly Differ that runs the Facebook page. And then I do all the socials myself. So I'm not the most active on Twitter/X, mostly Instagram. So if I'm posting stuff on Instagram, it'll migrate over to Facebook. And then when it comes to the podcast, we do the StreamYard, so we'll navigate over. So hopefully the next step regards to building more engagement, get more people involved is learning the functions of Instagram on the StreamYard. So I have a decent audience there. I've done about 25,000. I used to have 40,000 back in 2019, and then I was hit with a copyright infringement, ridiculous post. So I had to start back from scratch, and I have to say it killed the confidence, killed the buzz, because Instagram was my main target. It was like hitting the younger audience, and then Facebook would be my older audience. So anyone from the 40s onwards would be my target market on Facebook. So it's great when you look at all the stats and you can see majority of the audience. Like there's a lot of that would come from Canada, Asia, America, and it's just a really good feeling of building this relationship, building these connections with anyone in the world. There's always someone that tunes in from a place that you would not expect. I've built relationships with a guy originally from Monaghan that lives in Alaska now, Brian. It's just madness. It's absolute madness.
Well, you're talking to a guy from Belfast who's in Borneo, so there you go. It's a Celtic world.
Exactly, and I'm sure you're not surprised when you go down the road to Malaysia and you'll probably see at least once a week you'll see someone wearing a Celtic jersey somewhere.
Not so much here, to be honest. I go out on game day and ride about on my motorbike with a Celtic top on, hoping for somebody to give me a shout. Very seldom happens. But that's because I live in an obscure place, you know. Yeah, so I've been watching you for quite a while, like before the Celtic World started up, and I was commenting as somebody else, as a different handle. And one of the first things I noticed about your show is how you lean into some of the mispronunciations that you do. That's a bit of a feature. You're like, I know I'm saying it wrong, you know, don't wet your pants in the comments, you know, because I saw people giving you grief initially for your pronunciations. And like, I'm a bit of a stickler on the Celtic World for trying to get people to say things right. But I mean, everybody gets things wrong all the time. And you just sort of breeze over the top of it saying, that's how I say it, forget about it. Don't waste your time, lads.
That's it. Well, you look at when, say, for example, if it is a transfer link or it's a player that's coming in and I'm struggling to say, first of all, the picture is going to be up there in the thumbnail. The name's going to be below in the handle and the stats are going to be there as well. So it's not a case that whoever I'm doing my homework on, if it's a case that I'm looking on transfer market or YouTube or trying to pick out the features, it means I'm putting detail into these people. When I originally started, like it was really bad when I started first when I was looking at it. Like I couldn't even pronounce the champ's name. It used to be Nietzsche, Oliver Nietzsche. I used to call him. So it got there. But I just love it. There's people out there on my YouTube that are looking out for me that just want perfection, and you can't give perfection. At the end of the day, it's nothing personal against these people. But if they put themselves in a situation where they're prepped of what happens in the background, I'd be sitting and work, and I work in an office job Monday to Friday, and just the amount of work that happens in the background when I get that extra 10 or 15 minutes where I can print this something out, write something out, do a bit of finer details. They don't realize what goes wrong. Like today, I don't have a tripod with me, but when I'm going back and forth between Dublin and Glasgow, I bring my laptop, tripod. At one point, I was bringing me Blue Yeti microphone, big massive microphone in my bag. People don't realize what we actually do to put on a show. And it's not just a simple case where, oh, I can just press the record button and start chatting. There's more to it. Like, argument's sake, if I have my kids with me, I have to make sure they're in bed at a suitable time so I don't have any background. I'm very perfectionist, and I'll give you a prime example. Say I'm big news comes out, I'm sitting at home, and my other half is there, and I turn around and say, "You're gonna have to go out for a walk, or you're gonna have to go to the other room because I can't record." But this is the crazy thing about me,
Yeah.
Gav. I can't record around people, but I've
Mm.
no problem getting on a stage in front of hundreds of people and talking
Yeah.
about it. It's just, I just think it's, it's the closure of people looking at someone actually looking at you, because I don't like editing me stuff. I'd rather just get on with it. So if the case that I'm recording something about a particular player, and 3.5 minutes in, I stutter and I don't feel that's right, I won't edit that. I'll just go in and just re-record the whole thing again. That's the type of
Yeah.
person I am. I learned that over the years, but the YouTube channel has been decent. I've had really ups and downs because of, obviously, I've moved over from Dublin to Scotland. But during lockdown, I really got stuck into it. I put a lot into it, and I've had me bad days on YouTube. For example, I got demonetized from YouTube last year for 7 months. So I was demonetized because of a copyright infringement of a player at the club, still at the club, and I recorded 30 seconds off another channel, and I got hit for copyright. So I appealed it, and the process was you have to send a video appeal. So I sent a video appeal, and they weren't satisfied with that. And then I had to wait another 3 months. So I went back again, done the same process, and then they declined it. So last September, I went in for the appeal again, and I wasn't confident whatsoever regards to the appeal. I was like, I'm not going to win this. And so what I done before that was I actually communicated with YouTube's customer service team through chat, and I said, look, I'm very, very upset because this channel keeps me going for me, communicating with my fans. I've made this is a big pipeline for me, engaging with people, and also it's not just a hobby, it's my passion. Like, so I wrote down, I expressed my concerns, didn't have any confidence in winning the appeal, and then I won the appeal. So that gave me the extra drive. So when people see my channel when I'm putting up a daily content, it's because you need to have consistency in YouTube for your numbers to go up. There's so many Celtic podcasts out there that will probably do only one podcast a week, yet they might have great numbers, and I always say, we're all in it together. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. If you have 600 subscribers or you have 40,000 subscribers, there's no ego with it. We're all the same. We all should work with each other. And I have to give it to Paul John Dykes. He does a fantastic work into getting people engaging, getting all these channels on to do a slot for charity. If it's for St Mary's Church or it's for young Tierney, it's a show that we're different. We're very unique to other clubs, that we all have each other's back most of the time. And look, we can't win battles against other people, but I just feel like, it gives me that push to get this channel more and more, because I'm that type of person, right? If I do a good video and I feel like that video is after making 6,000 or 7,000 views, I would keep checking that video every 20 minutes to say, oh my god, someone else is looking, I'm at the hitting that. That's gonna hit me few subscribers. There's a lot of incentives with YouTube, but I'm just happy to be on. I'm happy that it's quite weird, and I don't say this in a cocky way or ego way. The type of work I deal with is office work, and people come into my office and be like, "Oh, are you that guy off the YouTube?" And then if I'm flying home back and forth all the time, people recognize me like, "Oh, you're that guy. What's your YouTube? Keep it going." They hear that from just a person that could be in their 50s or 60s, or someone that's in their 20s. That gives me an urgency to keep going with it.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, when you get a kick in the teeth when you're banned from certain videos demonetized, I just feel like, oh, I would have give up or not. So I treat my channel like it's my child, because I want success. I moved over there because at the end of the day, one day I want to sit down and say, well, I don't want to do this 9 to 5 job anymore. I want to sit home and do YouTube and talk about Celtic and engage with people, maybe do 2 or 3 podcasts a week. Also do other columns if it's a case of throwback players, great games. You know, you're very restricted of what you talk about and what you can publish because it's
And
all in the
how far
copyright.
away are you from making that reality?
Making it a reality, I'd say. Well, I'm nearly at 20,000 now. The next step will be maybe doing fan media so maybe in about 3 or 4 years I could do full time.
Yeah.
Financially.
Now, you moved over from Dublin to Glasgow to
Yeah.
sort of up your game in this area. And, you know, I've seen you talking to, you know, Chris Sutton and Jackie McNamara and people like that. How did the Sutton gig come about? Tell me about that, first of all.
That was actually a crazy one. So I was sitting in work one day and I got an email off a company saying we love sport. So they're based in London. So they have sponsored with the likes of Carl and other companies as well. And this guy rang me and he said, look, we're interested. He didn't say it was Chris Sutton in the email. He said, we're interested in getting a guy an MC on for regards to who loves Celtic's passion. And he wouldn't tell me who it was for the first 20 minutes of the conversation. So I said, right, I'd be interested. If it's on a weekend, just count me out because I actually have family priorities at the moment. And they were like, well, look, it's Chris Sutton. Would you be interested? And I goes, well, you've given me probably the hardest person to interview because Chris Sutton, as we all know, is the biggest wind-up merchant in the business. So I had 4 weeks to get myself together, and prior to that I interviewed, like as you said, Jackie, I've interviewed Simon, I've spoke to famous Celtic celebrities like Gianni Capaldi, good relationship with him, really good solid people there. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I've never been so nervous. It was actually worse than doing a job interview, like really really nervous. So it was actually funny enough, it was in Paisley, around the corner from me. It was in a place called the Abbey Inn, and they wouldn't let me promote the gig. They wouldn't let me promote the gig on my socials, and I found it very dodgy. I was like, "What's why come?" And they were like, "Oh, because it's the middle of summer, we might do it outside, and we'll actually maybe sell 120 tickets." And I'm saying to myself, "Oh my god, 120 tickets for a show with Chris Sutton, like this is madness." So they end up having it inside in the restaurant section. So it was about 85 to 90 people there. And I'm sitting there and he walks in and he's wearing a cap. He just comes over to me and he's like, "Oh, nice to meet you," and all. And he's like, "Oh, do you live over here?" And I was like, "Yeah, I live over here." I go to a handful of games a season. I just obviously family reasons, so I'm not at most games. And he's like, "Fine." He's just sitting there having latte upon latte. And I'm getting nervous and I stands up and I goes to the guy, the producer, and I said, "Look, Adam, I'm going up to the bar." He goes, "Keith, you can treat yourself to what you want. It's on us." So I ended up having about 7 pints of Carla before I went on stage with him. So I goes up to Chris and I said, "Chris, that script I wrote out, let's forget about it. Let's just go freestyle. Let me ask you questions from the top of the head and we go with the flow." And he said, "That's no problem." So we went on stage and some of the questions I asked, the first 10 minutes, he absolutely roasted me. He roasted me about certain questions and all, and he just made a show of me, like literally that's just Chris Sutton as his identity.
Yeah.
And then he started easing down, started talking about his career, his early days at Norwich, Blackburn, and then he moved on to Celtic, and he was coursing everything. He was just proper one of the lads. And I didn't want to go on talking about the likes of Henrik and John and other players because it's his night. It's about what I've learned from previous podcasts and previous interviews. You don't go on about other players too much. You go on about they're there to talk about their career. Let them solely talk about. If they want to bring up other players, oh man. So there was a question I threw at him, and he was taken back when I goes, "I know you've worked with a lot of really good professionals in the game," and it goes, "There's one particular player I want to talk to you about," and I've been always a big fan of him in the day. Like one of my dad's favorite players, Craig Bellamy, and he said, "Oh my God, I'm glad you actually bring up Bellamy." He goes, "I have a story about Bellamy." He goes, "When he was on loan at Celtic from Newcastle, we were playing up in the Highlands, and this was after the game, so we were staying in a hotel, and a Newcastle game was on. So obviously Bellamy was on loan from Newcastle, and Souness was the manager at the time. And someone was ripping it into Alan Shearer, and someone, I think it was John Hartson actually. John Hartson turned around and said, no, it was Lenny. Lenny turned around and said, I bet you would never say that to yourself. I bet you wouldn't text him saying he's a fat, you know what? And this was like Shearer's last season, and he texted him, and then he got back to him 2 or 3 hours later when they were on the way back down the road, and he said, "I'm gonna kill you when I see you," and all. But he said that Bellamy was a great professional, very he came into training early, had a good mentality. You know, he was a wind up merchant, but he's the best professional footballer he's played with regards to work wise. You know, took everything very serious, and I was surprised because I thought he was going to say Larson or someone like that, or someone he played at Chelsea, and he said Bellamy all day.
Bellamy's one of those that you just wish he'd spent longer in a
Oh,
Celtic
yeah.
shirt, you know.
100%.
Imagine what he could have done.
I just think, you know, I think the whole Bellamy situation is, I know we end up losing the league the last day of the season, but some of the goals he scored, it was like 15 goals for Celtic. And what I liked about Bellamy was he was very different to any player. He had the pace, he had the mentality, and he used to cut the collar off the jersey. So he used to cut the collar off the home top, and then when we wore the Black Magic a couple of times, he actually cut the collar off that. He was a strange character. Good player for Liverpool, Norwich, Blackburn, everywhere he went, even Cardiff when he went back to Cardiff. But yeah, so the Chris Sutton was a success. The latest one I done, Gav, was George Gadetti. Done George Gadetti 4 weeks ago. So supporters group in Drogheda called St Lawrence's. A guy called Peter Walsh reached out to me. He's been watching me for years, and he said to me, "Look, Keith, would you be interested in doing George Gadetti?" And I said, "Yeah, love to do George Gadetti. I've done actually a player profile on George Gadetti." So he was completely different game to Chris Sutton. He was more laid back. So George came in the door. He's having a latte as well, and I go, "So what's the story with these former professional footballers with lattes?" Like, so he didn't stay on the lattes long. That was fine, and they had a great setup. They had a stage. They had all the green neon lights, and they had the smoke, and they had the projector and all that. It was a really good setup, completely different to Chris Sutton. Chris Sutton's was like a pull-up banner, the Carlin and all that, and it was like, you know, in a still. It was completely different. These were like table, 2 action chairs. If you were half cut, you could actually fall back into the chair. So there was a rail, and I said this to the guys. I said, "Look, I have an idea. I goes, if he's can root out a Portugal jersey, a Celtic jersey, like a C.R. Smith jersey, and if you can root out jerseys and we can put it together." And funny enough, the guy that asked me said, "I actually have a Bradford jersey and I have a Celtic Vigo jersey there." He goes, "The only reason I have a Bradford jersey because I was on the way on holidays and I swapped it with a guy from over there." So we had all the clubs that he played for, even Sporting Lisbon in there. And we had Benfica as well because he had a spell at Benfica. And I bring up the stage. He was literally in the building 10 minutes, and I said, "Look, George, all the jerseys here of all the clubs you played in your career, what one do you want to pick?" And straight away, he went with Peter's Bumblebee jersey. Peter's Bumblebee jersey was an extra large. So George Gadetti's there with an extra large jersey, walking around the pub on having these whiskey. So gets him on the stage, and it was meant to be, the segment was meant to be an hour, just over an hour chatting on the stage, and we ended up staying on for almost 2 hours, just 2 hours alone on the segment. And then we went down. I went off the stage. I started asking questions to people, you know. And there was one particular guy that lived in County Laois that came all the way up to watch George, talk to George. And I said to him, I said, "Look, you could do it in Portuguese and you could do it in English." Ask him the particular question, and you could see George Cadet, he was getting quite emotional talking about his homeland and his career at Portugal that didn't really work out, his international career. But he was just, some of the stories, he's talking about Fergus McCann, that he bought his way out of his contract to come to Celtic, and he was promised this incentive and that incentive. And there was a story he told me that Leeds United were looking at Di Canio. So they came up, and Gadetti ended up scoring I think it was a hat-trick that day, or 2 goals. And Gadetti, then they actually put their eyes on Gadetti and put it in, at that time, a 10 million bid. A 10 million bid in modern day football, you're looking at, that's nearly a 50 million bid, like, put in to Gadetti, and the club won't let him go. So there was, you could see both sides of the story, why Fergus McCann, as much as he was a saviour and he built a stadium, he brought in some really good players and he built the foundation of the club. You could see where the first term of players that were coming through them door, they didn't get the treatment that they were expected, the promises they were expected, and that's what I feel now. That's what I kind of feel like we're having that with Rodgers at the moment. He's being sold a broken bone.
Well, look, we'll get on to that in a second. I just want to keep talking about you for a bit, Keith. So
Yeah.
you've got this burgeoning role as an MC for events, and I've seen you saying, you're happy to do more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
That must
100%.
be great. Must be great to get these calls. You're in Glasgow, and you've got the sort of Irish Scottish crossover thing going on. So events
Like
in
I
Ireland.
put
and all
myself
that.
out there. Like I have many connections that do it, and I always say to them, I say, look, when the time is right. Like I've spoke to a guy in Dublin, Peter Brown's Aidan Brown, and Aidan wants me to do events with him eventually. And I was like, look, I'm happy to do it. Like if it's a case for charity, I'll happy to do as well. I wanna help people as much as I can. I wanna reach out to people that don't know me. So if it's a case that I'm like, oh, like, he's actually pretty good, but the whole draw of the event was a success. There was like 50 people at it, but everyone had a really good night. We had George like doing the huddle, singing Caledonia, singing Fields of Athenry. We had him really, really easy. Funny enough, he actually he ended up staying till like 2:30 in the morning in the pub. Now I had to leave about 12 o'clock, but it was a good atmosphere, and I want to do more of them because at the end of the day, it's an education lesson for me. It means that I can see fans' faces that grew up watching these players, like, and it's reeling back the days for them, and that's their childhood hero, and you could see how emotional people get, really emotional, and especially when they're talking about certain stories and stuff. Like we mentioned Tommy Burns, and one or two people were crying in the crowd because that's how it hits at home. So I'm planning to hopefully get more gigs in the future. Look, it takes time. I'm in the right place now. I'm in Glasgow. I made a big decision to move to Glasgow. It's not just for building the channel. I needed a new fresh start, and I moved over there. I said, look, the foundations is there, the channel's there. I know a lot of people over here. The next step, when time comes down, when I don't travel back and forth to Dublin, is get myself on the season book and can start going to more games. Yeah.
Let's talk about that because I've seen you talking about the grief you get from people online.
100%.
You're not from Glasgow. You don't go to all the games. Who the hell are you to come tell us how to support Celtic? All this kind of stuff.
Oh,
which is always going to happen online, right? But there's another element to it because mental health is something you're not shy to talk about.
100%.
And so tell me, how does that all work? How do you're opening yourself up to criticism, you're getting the criticism, and it's messing with your head sometimes, presumably. How do you cope with all that? Yeah.
I used to be really bad with it. So there used to be one or two individuals in Dublin that knew me for years, and I'm not shy from where I come from. I come from a place called Ballymun. Majority of people here are Man U Liverpool fans. I grew up from a Liverpool background. I'll talk about the story how I became a Celtic fan because a lot of people are quite starstruck by it. So I grew up as a Liverpool supporter, and that's all I knew was Liverpool. My dad used to have all the Celtic jerseys. My dad was never in Celtic Park before, and my uncle introduced me to his missus, and so Liverpool played Celtic in the UEFA Cup, and I was raging at the time because I was one of these Liverpool English Premier League fans. We didn't like it, and my mum went out when we got to Seville. There was a big sale on and Lifestyle Sports at the time. She's like, "Do you want a Celtic jersey? Because I'm buying your dad the new Carling one with the button on it." And I said, "Yeah, get me a Celtic jersey." So I got the yellow one, the NTL Home Digital. I remember it was €20, right? I wore it for the final against Porto. I felt a bit of sympathy because obviously everyone was supporting Celtic. So that was fine. Start buying jerseys. Didn't really get the whole knowledge of the hoops. I'm not going to lie. Didn't really get it at the time. I used to get the long sleeve jersey every single Christmas. And then my uncle met a girl from Clydebank back in 2006. So I ended up meeting this girl in Talbot Street in Dublin. And the first thing she said to me, Gav, was, "I'm going to get you converted from Liverpool to Celtic." And I laughed and I said, "Not in a million years. I love Liverpool. I still find that UEFA Cup defeat raw in my head. It's really hit me." And I was only a teen at the time. I was raging. Like, I went to school that day. There was one or two Celtic fans in my class, and they were giving me abuse because I was always wearing my Liverpool jersey. And when we caught them now dead in the Liverpool jersey now. So this is how it all happened. So it was Christmas time, a month after I met her, and we're in my nana's kitchen, and she comes in with this green package, shiny green package. And I turned around and goes, that better not be a Celtic top in that, because I have loads already. And she's like, no, look in it. So it was a yellow Celtic training jersey. And inside the yellow Celtic training jersey, she had, it was like, I can't explain, it's like you ever see the plastic, you ever see in the shops, you have the tags, the little plastic tags. She had that with an envelope put on it. So the envelope opens up, and it's the last 16 of the Champions League, AC Milan and Liverpool. Oh, not AC Milan, Liverpool, AC Milan Celtic. And I turn around and goes, Barcelona, Liverpool are on. I goes, that better not be on the same night or not coming over. That's how bitter I was. So that was all right. We went to Glasgow. First time after Glasgow, went up to Celtic Park on the game day. Done the stadium tour. Before we walked into the stadium tour, Arthur Borridge comes over to us. That's a picture. I didn't even know it was Arthur Borridge's birthday at the time. Got to meet the big Paul, and then Neil Lennon came over. I said this to Neil Lennon when I met him at the airport 7 weeks ago. Told him this story. And I goes, my uncle turned around and said to you, Neil, he goes, oh, this is my nephew. This is his first time at Celtic Park. He's been a Liverpool fan all his life. And he turned around and he goes, son, you don't have a clue what you're in for later on. This is one of the most magical nights in as a Celtic fan. And I just bluffed it off. So went into the reception. Nakamura was sitting down on the left-hand side of the reception. We went upstairs, and I got a picture of Evander Snow. Used to be one of them old Motorola flip-up phones, Razor phones. And so they're bringing us out to the stands, and it's Billy Connolly C. And my uncle turned around and goes to me. He turned around and he goes to me, look over on the right-hand side. That's the Lisbon line stand. We're eight seats up from that goal. And I was like, it's a football match. Why are you getting so passionate about it? Like, because I'd never been to a football match before. I was meant to go and see Liverpool years before, and I got let down, and I just didn't bother. And so that was fine. He's like, so they were putting up all the display for the game, the tifo for the display, and we end up going into this club store. He spent about 300 quid on me getting all the Celtic clobber and all. So on the way up to the game day, I started seeing all the lights, all the lights, and it was obviously all the Champions League banners. And then You Never Walk Alone came on, and I folded. Literally stood there. I could not believe I'm looking around. There's like 60,000 scarves around me in the air. And after that, I sat down and cried for 20 minutes. During the game, cried for 20 minutes. And I said to my uncle, I goes, I think I know who me love is now, me true love. I thought it was something else, but now
Oh, that was what a glamorous entry into the world of Celtic. For most people, it's like some shitty cup game in November.
Yeah, 0-0 game. And then 3 weeks later, I went to my first ever All Firm. It was All Firm at the time. We ended up losing, unfortunately, but it was the atmosphere, and I couldn't believe it. Like the rivalry, the bitterness between the teams, the hype about it, and then it just Champions League, and then it just I've been to about, since I became a Celtic fan, full-time Celtic fan since the age of 16. I've been to about 40 games, and I do get scrutiny. I got scrutiny from people back at home that turn around and say, "Oh, he's just a blow-in Celtic fan." And I like to tell me followers, I like to tell my audience how it came along. It wasn't a case that it was born in me, like most fans. It was born in them. The jersey was thrown on them as a kid. That wasn't the way with me. It was a way that I had to learn the history of the club. I had to, adapt. I had to buy jerseys. I didn't do it for all these people. I done it for myself, but I got a lot of criticism over the past about, I'm a Sofa fan. I don't have a clue. I shouldn't have an input. I'm an embarrassment. I'm trying to talk about Celtic. I don't know what I'm doing, and it just gives me fuel to just succeed. At the end of the day, the haters will always hate, and that will give you motivation to do better. Because at the end of the day, people don't want to see you do well in life, and that's what it is. But I always say to people that's setting up a YouTube channel, go for it. what's to lose? It's all to gain. You start with nothing, and you're gonna get there.
Mm-hmm. Inspiring words, Keithy. How about some inspiring words for the rest of the season? Tell us how well it's going to go.
I think it's going to be a final day title.
Yeah.
It's feeling like that. It's just we need to forget about the window. There's no point of talking about the last two windows. I'm sick of talk.
Sure.
Feel like what we need to look at is, as Roger said the other day in his press conference, there's 13 games left in the league. If this will probably be Callum McGregor's hardest league he's ever won. I know we obviously the rebuild with Ange. I'd say this would be McGregor's hardest league he's won because he has to show his mentality as a captain, what he signed up for to get these guys across the line. And it's not just him, it's Joe Hart, Greg Taylor has to come back, all these senior players in the squad. And I believe we can do it, but we need to stop thinking about who's below us and what they're doing. We need to think about ourselves. We need to get ourselves in order. And I think that with the addition of Ida, I think he will help us. He will help us in that department. We're missing that physicality up front. I know people write, "Oh, I'm not O's biggest fan." I just feel like he has. I think a long move for O would do well. I think he needs that long move away from Celtic to develop as a player. And I think there is a player there, but if we win our two derbies and we win all our games, it's ours, and it's difficult because it's a big if, but people need to realise as well, as much as the bar has been raised high with Ange, it's a rebuild. It's a rebuild. Any manager that comes in, you don't keep the same key of players. Players want to move on and challenge ourselves, and we've seen what happened with Jota and Starfelt, and we expect success because we pay for success, and we've had success, and I hate when fans say we've been spoiled for success over the last 12 years. You're not spoiled for success if you work hard and you put the resources in. That's what you get. That's just what you put in, you get results. And I think a lot of with players that have been there when what happened in 2020, they should have the fuel in the belly to be like, I don't want this to happen again. We need to win this, especially in front of our fans, and it'll be an enjoyable league. I hope it probably remind me of the 2008 season. Now when we went down to the last day of the season and we won it in Tannadice, and then hopefully I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it go down to the final day of the season, as much as it's nerve wracking.
I don't know if I can take it. All my hair will be torn out by the end of the season.
You'll be fine. Honestly, if we can get it, I think if this game tomorrow is the massive game. I know it's not a league game.
Well, let's talk about that, because tomorrow we're recording this the day before the St Mirren Cup game. So by the time this goes out, that result will be known. If all goes well, we're still in the cup. We can work on improving in the league. If all doesn't go well, it's going to be mayhem, isn't it?
It's going to be mayhem. You're going to have that pressure when the next home game. And I had seen people in the comments and other channels saying, well, the fans need to come together. You're not going to have that. You're not going to have that everybody on board, because some fans are just old-fashioned and they just want to concentrate on the team. They don't want to concentrate on the board. They don't want to concentrate on the fans. I think we're in for a difficult game tomorrow. I'm actually dreading it because Stephen Robinson is a really good manager, and I'm surprised he hasn't even taken the Hibs or the Hearts or the Aberdeen job, because he's done well with Motherwell and he's done well with St Mirren. He is a cup manager, and they have formula to be Celtic, especially at home. They're flying at the moment. And I know, I think Rodgers knows himself that he's in a difficult game. We went there at the start of January. We beat them because obviously I think they were just getting into their, the January winter break mood, and they were just like, what. But St Mirren are always a difficult team, always one of the hardest teams to play against. But I don't think we need to make elite changes tomorrow. Like, if you're giving me starting lineup, Gav, I'd go with obviously Hart and goal. I think Hart deserves a bit of praise, considering a lot of people are on his back saying he's done and dusted. And I'm one of these people that have criticised him a lot in the past, because I think his passing attributes are not great. I think he's physicality in the box and not making himself a proper keeper coming out and catching the ball. But when it comes to that shot stopping, you have to give it to him. He's saved Celtic in the last 3 or 4 games. Deserves the praise, and that's what we got Joe Hart for.
Who else then in the back four?
Yeah, I go with Ralston, because obviously Johnson's out with his fractured face. As much as he's being criticised, you have to go with Berta Bay. I think, you're bringing someone in for 3.7 million from Argentina. He's either going to flop or he's going to succeed. And the only way you can actually give someone a judgment, he's only played 6 games all season. So if he wants to make a statement and actually fight for that place ahead of Taylor, when Taylor's due back in next week or two, you Berta Bay.
Keith, my in-laws are downstairs and I'm going to have to run very shortly. So let's run through the team.
So Scales and Naroski, I just Welch. I'm not that confident of Welch at the moment. I just think it's the lacking of football he's been playing. McGregor, O'Reilly, Bernardo, that connection for the last game against St Mirren, they were magic. The three of them. Strange one, but I'll go over it. I'll go with Maeda. I wouldn't start Kun, and I'd play Ida and Kyogo. I think taking the pressure, I'd actually play I'd play Kyogo on the right hand flank. I think taking the pressure off him with the lack of service, give him a bit of time on the flank, and then put Ida up there.
Fantastic. All right. Well, when people are watching this, they'll know how it went. So fingers crossed it all went well. Keith, it's been amazing to have you on.
Of course.
Hopefully sometime we can get you on as one of 4 for a full hour-long chat. I'm sorry I kept calling you Keithy. I've got a friend called Keithy.
I'm getting called Keithy in Scotland all the time. It's okay.
All right. Well, look, thanks a lot, dude. Very best of luck with everything you do, and hopefully we'll see you back on the channel.
Oh, hopefully. Big time. Thanks very much, Gav. All the best.
Well, there you go. Ian has stashed back to his seat there after his long toilet break.
My seat's right here. So I was looking up at it, standing desk.
Okay, so that was good to have Keith on. Very entertaining to hear his story. All right, so let's finish off with our Celtic social media choices, gentlemen. And this one is yours, Ian.
Yeah, I just think it's important to kind of address, because it was one of the big omissions. Brendan Rodgers saying that Abada's not in the right frame of mind, and it's a challenging time for him. Without diving too much into the politics of the whole situation, you have to remember he's a young kid, and whatever you think about what's going on, he is from a nation that is collectively, or the majority of them have one opinion on things, and it's obviously going to be impacting him. And then there's a lot of chat about what I would call a minority of our support, in terms of, I don't actually think there's that many people who are against Abada himself or don't want him to do well. But I do think that kind of smallish one is blown out of proportion, and we do have the other side of the city saying that our own fans are chasing him out. I don't think it's that at all. I think he has a lot going on, as Brendan Rodgers has alluded to, and I think whilst we may not agree with the politics of the situation, I think we can sympathise with Abada, who is from that country and that environment where he's taking on lots of opinions and things that will be very focused to him. So trying to not get too deep into it, but I think Rodgers is probably right to take him out of the limelight. What I'd probably say about that as well is, I think it's going to be a tough walk back for Abada, just because of everything that's going on. I hope he does, because he's a good player, and I do think people are willing to support him. But his head's clearly been gone for a good 4 games. On mute, Gav.
That's what happens when you record in a room where there's a barking dog near you. Stephen, have you anything to add to that?
Probably just that. I think this just adds to the failures of our recruitment team over the January window there, because he's obviously in his current mental condition. He's not used to us at all. He's not going to play, and if he's clearly not ready to play. So why wasn't he not ushered out the door in January? I've no idea. Even a loan deal would have been best for all concerned, for him to just get out of the way and play some football. But here we are, 3 weeks, not even 2 weeks after the window's closed, and we've got a player who isn't ready to play. It's got numerous issues in it. Probably I agree with Ian. I'm very surprised if you see about it again as a player for Celtic. And it would have been best for all concerned if he'd moved on in the January window.
Well, let's hope that with many things that are going on at Celtic at the moment, people just remain calm. Time will pass. We'll work on things on the training pitch, and there could be brighter days ahead. As much for bad as everyone else, I don't think the door's completely closed. But on a brighter note, there's this. Stephen?
It's a much brighter note.
This is
I don't know
Celic's
what I mean. I don't know what was going on there. Is that a gum shield?
Yeah, it's a mouth guard.
I mean,
Gum
it's
shield.
just really the most ridiculous looking mouth guard I think I've ever seen in my life. It does very, very much resemble a set of teeth that's been bought and paid for overseas, possibly in Turkey. It really looks bizarre.
Well, I mean, Hatate has a blue one, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
It's just because this is white. He reminds me of Max Headroom. Do you remember Max Headroom?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what he reminds me of. But this post makes another reference. Ketamine Kyogo. What's the significance of that?
Yeah, there was a famous character in Still Game, the famous Scottish sitcom called Methadone Mick, and he was obviously a methadone addict, and he had a big set of white teeth just like that. And he started off in Still Game having a really dodgy set of teeth, and just appeared one episode with these gleaming white teeth. So
weren't they false? Didn't they come out in a job interview or something?
Yeah, they were like veneers or something like that. But he was that's where the methadone Mick and of course ketamine Kyogo is meant to be a play on that.
Well, hopefully it's something less sinister than ketamine, and possibly Iron Brew is killing Kyogo's teeth, says Keith.
Could be.
All right, gents, we've gone on a little bit longer than normal, but that was a good show. Enjoyed it very much. We're back to winning ways, hopefully, and we can have a bit more positivity about things. So the show today was called Cmon The Hoops for two reasons. One, in honor of Keith, but secondly, because that could be a turning point in the season. There could be brighter days ahead, but we've had a few false dawns, it's fair to say, this season. How hopeful are you now, Stephen, that the clouds are parting and the sun is shining through?
Oh, it's pretty hard to say, to be honest. Again, I'll go back to something I keep harping on about. Games away to St Mirren were never a problem. I think it's next week we're at home to Kilmarnock. Kilmarnock in good form. They'll come and just set up the low block, and if we can, if we can get a result there and get a fairly comfortable win, which we should be, then we can maybe start to say, oh yeah, things are looking up a bit. But if we go there again and turn in another turgid performance, like most of our home games have been this year, then we'll maybe be just back to square one again. But I'm pretty hopeful that when we start to get our injured players back, I think Cameron Carter-Vickers will be back within the next couple of weeks. Greg Taylor should be back next weekend, and then Hatate maybe a few weeks later. If we can hang in there in the title race, I think towards the back end of the season we'll pick up some form then, and hopefully be in a good position to have a good run at the title.
You second that, Ian?
Yeah, I think, we've got a couple of tough games in the next four. We've got Motherwell away and Hearts away, mixed in with Kilmarnock at home and Dundee at home. So I think, I would like to think that we get maximum points and kick on. But like you say, a couple of false dawns. Let's take it one game at a time.
Brilliant. Fantastic. See you all on Thursday. Thanks everyone in the comments for participating. Thanks very much, Stephen and Ian. And thanks, of course, to Keith. All right. See you on the next one.